I'm now going to show you how we can use an object's orientation, in this case the sunlight, and modify basically a gradient based on the direction to the object, which currently can't be done with any of the input nodes in view, except the incident light angle, but it only works for highlight values and reflections and ray angles and stuff like that. You can't use it to control color or anything like that. So we can actually control bump, color, alpha, and just about anything based on the direction. And what we're going to do is use the normal in order to control the black and white output. So in the function editor of the material, we're going to add in an external dependency, which is going to be the sunlight orientation. Now this could be any object orientation, but the sunlight we're going to use for this, so everything is going to be based on the sun's direction. What we need to do is also add the normal options instead of using the default normal, and this way we can set the normal type to world. So this way it's always relative to the, and no matter what the rotation of the object, it will still work properly. We're going to add in a math node and vector operations and use the dot product. And connect the first to the normal options and the second to the external dependency. And then we need to add one more conversion math node, and we want to change this from orientation to direction. Then we're going to add a filter and use the opposite to reverse it, because with the default setup, 0 or -1 is basically the direction, because with a sunlight, when you have the orientation, it's basically pointing at an object. So I'm also going to take and just delete all the color, and we can connect the color output directly to this opposite, which will create a black and white gradient, just so you can see what it looks like. So right now, based on where the sun comes in, we have basically a diffusive fall off. So it starts at white and then works its way to black. And we could adjust a color map that's connected to this to clip it, basically at the halfway point. And the preview you're seeing in the material editor is basically reversed. It won't show the way it actually shows up in the scene. So let's take a look at just a quick render of that. So we can see it showing up in the front here, and just to show you that it does work, if we move the light, it is linked up to that. So now we set it to sort of a sunrise, and you'll just start to see the white part where the light is directly shining on it just starting to show up along those normals. So we could control, say, an alpha production this way, and maybe have snow fall off in certain areas. Dependent to the sun, we could control ecosystems with it. Say, have greener plants where the sun is shining directly on for the longest period of the day. That's a pretty useful option, considering you can't normally do it with other inputs. So what you can do to make a quick tool out of it is just grab everything within the node, or within the function, except that color map, and create a meta node. And then we can edit it and just take that external dependency and we can just call this orientation. So you pick the orientation of the object that's going to control the output. We can go ahead and save that. And if you save this within, say, your input nodes, now we can right click, add input node, meta node, and then you'll find diffuse orientation. That's what I just made. So now we can just access that directly within the interface and set it up in other materials. So the meta node will be included. And keep in mind, whenever you load it in, you do have to select that dependency. So anytime you add in that meta node loaded in, one thing you could do is publish the parameter to the main interface. And that way we can go to published, and then so whenever you load it in, you can just go into the material editor and then set the option. It looks like it might be a little buggy right now. It might be because I'm recording though too. So if you don't want to publish it, if publishing is causing problems, then don't use that portion of it. Another thing you can do to modify the tool, and I'm just going to unpublish that because that was just behaving very strangely. And I might just need to reset this material. It looks like avoid publishing parameters for the moment. And we'll just reset that up to the sunlight orientation. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and ungroup the meta node. You could just go into the meta node too and make these modifications. On the link from the normal to the dot product, we can add in another math node vector operations matrix transformation. And then what we can do is modify and increase or decrease the different vectors in order to shift the surface. So if we did 3 for the Y, or sorry, the Z up and down, you can see in the preview, and I'll go ahead and make that bigger. That it shifts it upward. So you could basically expand upon the orientation a little bit. Using the X and the Y will kind of shift it to the side and increase it, kind of like an orientation control does. So just another way you can kind of tweak it and modify, add additional options to the tool.